This time on Classic Reviews, we're going to be looking at the film True Stories. True Stories was directed by David Byrne and stars David Byrne alongside John Goodman and tells the story of a bunch of people in Virgil, Texas. True Stories doesn't have a traditional narrative in the, well, traditional sense. Instead, it opts to tell its story through a series of vignettes by telling us through the eyes of David Byrne, our sort of narrator or guide throughout this strange little town in Texas, and mainly focuses on just telling a bunch of strange and weird stories about the people that live there. The only thing that really focuses in on any type of traditional narrative is with John Goodman's character, who is a man that's just looking for love in the little town, and basically goes to the extent that he will video himself and put it as a commercial on the TV for everybody to see. Guys, that was actually the hardest part of this video. Like, how do I describe the plot of this movie? Because there's nothing really there in a traditional sense, but that's kind of what you're getting into with this film. It's not really a traditional film in the traditional sense, and I find it really just unique. If you know anything about this film, David Byrne basically took a bunch of tabloid magazines and posted them on a wall and created a story around what if these fake stories in these tabloid magazines were real. And so we get some interesting little stories throughout this movie, such as the one I told about John Goodman, but then there's also a woman that's so rich that she doesn't have to even leave her house or even get out of a bed, with a bunch of like robot servants and things that feed her instead of her feeding herself. There's also a compulsive liar that believes she was with JFK, or that she was born with a tail, and it's all this weird kind of stuff. And the only straight person throughout this entire narrative is David Byrne, playing our guide through this weird and wacky world. Now, the first time I ever heard of this movie was actually about a year ago on Red Letter Media's review series, and they talked about that film, and I was really interested in it, but I didn't get a chance to watch it until now, and man, I'm so glad I did. This is just a really clever, funny film that I'm not sure it's aware of how funny it is. David Byrne just does an excellent job in this film. He is so funny, and I don't think he knows he's that funny. There's just moments of kind of physical comedy with him, and it's just great. A lot of times, he'll be talking to the audience during the film, and there's moments of him, like, sitting in his car with a back projection of him driving, which looks incredibly fake, and I think that's the point of it. But it's just so funny, and his timing with his dialogue is just really, really funny, and it just makes this movie such a blast to watch. And it's such a weird film in that, like, what it's really focusing on. Like, David Byrne takes time out of this movie to talk about the history of Texas, talking about how we took it away from the Native Americans, the Mexicans, and all this different stuff. And it was just, it's like, wow, I didn't expect to get a history lesson out of this, but it was actually really nice in making this town feel so real and authentic. And I think that's what he really does with this film. In fact, I feel like this film is really kind of a time capsule, really showing you what this town was like in 1986, and it really talks about how, you know, the big businesses are taking over. There's this factory that's in town, and how it's taking a little bit of jobs away, and people are all working there, and it's kind of like there's this separate place, and then there's the town. And then there's also this great scene where he's in the shopping mall, and like, so this is 1986, so shopping malls are relatively new all around, and he has this conversation with us about how shopping malls have kind of become like the town centers now. They're where people congregate to, just talk with each other and hang out, and that's really something like I never really thought about. Like, yeah, that's what it kind of is. That's what it kind of become. I mean, it's not that way now, especially with like just how much consumerism is now, and really people are at the mall to, be at the mall and just buy things, and it's very consumer heavy and not as much of a community experience anymore. And I really like that he kind of touched on that, and it was just a lot of fun. On top of this movie just being very clever and unique in a lot of ways, this movie also has wonderful music. The soundtrack for this movie is brought to us mostly from David Byrne's band, Talking Heads, which, if you don't know, I mean, look them up. They're great, and the music is what makes this film really work and stand out. This has one of the best soundtracks for a movie I have ever seen, and the way that they use the music and incorporate it into the movie is really cool. There's sequences that are like musical numbers almost, and it's really weird because you weren't watching a musical, but you are now. And yeah, a lot of the music is brought to us by Talking Heads, and it's all really great music, especially in the last 30 so minutes of the film, where we're at this talent show and John Goodman is singing this song called People Like Us, and that's such a great little song, and I'm not sure if he is singing it or not. It kind of sounds like John Goodman's voice, so I'm not sure. If somebody watches this and like knows this movie by heart and he's not, then like I'm sorry for saying that. But also the movie ends with just a great little song that just puts you right in just a really good mood when you watch the film. Like, it's just so good. The song is City of Dreams, which is sung by David Byrne and his band, and it's just a great way to exit the movie with. It's really good. Guys, this is a very clever film with so many jokes and just so many eccentric, unique people in this film, and I think that's really what David Byrne wanted to do with this film. He wanted to make a movie that just had so many eccentric people in it, and also was really down to heart and true to everything. Like, it doesn't lie about anything, as far as I can tell. It really tells kind of the truth, and like the movie is really just trying to focus in on this little town, and I think that was just such an interesting idea. I've never really seen a movie like this, and just describing it to people is kind of hard, because it's like, how do you describe this movie? It's so different and so bizarre, and I don't know, but I absolutely love this movie. This is honestly my second time watching it for this review, and I just loved it even more this time. Now, in terms of negatives with the film, one of my negatives with the film might be the fact that in the middle of the film, it really does slow down a little bit, and you kind of check out, but it's really not too much of a problem when it's only in that middle section. And also something that could be seen as a negative, that's not exactly a negative for me, but could be one for other movie-going audiences, could be the fact that this movie doesn't really have a traditional narrative, and so it's just kind of watching through life. And also, it can be rather strange at times, but if you really look at what the movie's trying to do, the type of tone it's going for, it honestly really works, and it's just interesting watching a film from David Byrne, since this is the only film he ever made, and so in a way it's really just something really special, and I think that's why people remember it so well. Is like, it was just so different and unique at the time, and it's kind of got a cult following, and people seem to really love it, and I'm one of those. So really, yeah, that's not much in the way of negatives, but I mean, there's that. Guys, True Stories is a very interesting, funny, witty film that has a lot to talk about and is just such a sweet film that I can't help but recommend this, guys. This is really just something really special and just a lot of fun. I'm going to give True Stories an 8 out of 10. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed this review. I know I've been really slacking when it comes to the classic reviews this year, but I am going to start focusing on doing a lot more this year than just the Star Wars reviews. And if you haven't seen True Stories, I really say you should check it out and give it a chance, if not for the weirdness of, like, the story itself or, like, the comedy or anything that happens in the film, but do it for the music. It's a great soundtrack, and the way they use it in the film is absolutely perfect. But anyway, guys, that's all I got for you, so as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next review.